Hello, and welcome to another episode of Armchair Philosophies with your host, Peter. And lately there's been this hot new country song blowing up the charts called Try That in a Small Town. Now, this is honestly one of those things where you start to see AI infiltrate more and more things. I'm seeing not only certain sites like DeviantArt that used to be full of original art, some of it pretty bad, let's be honest, suddenly become flooded with AI art. I'm seeing AI art generated thumbnails. Hell, I've thought of using AI art for thumbnails. But when I heard this song and read this lyrics, I started to think, has AI finally reached songwriting? Because this is the sort of thing that somebody sits down and says, all right, Chat GPT, I want you to write me lyrics for a song about life in a small town that's gonna be loved by the Fox News watching crowd and all them liberals and the people who don't like the Donald Trump and the people who don't like Fox News, they's gonna hate this song, right? That's, okay. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Not only did it give me the lyrics, it gave me the beat and the chord progression too. Look at that. Look what this ChatGPT done. It says, sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjack an old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. Y'all think that's cool? Act a fool like that? Man, cuss out the call. Man, these lyrics are brilliant. These lyrics are total. I can't believe this came from a ChatGPT. The artificial intelligence is so smart nowadays. Man, it's smarter than my brother. You have to wonder if that's the origin of this song. And this sort of popular music is irritating in the sense that it seems not only to be clickbait, rage bait, yeah, buddy, this is my anthem about telling those liberals, but it's so by the numbers. This is why I don't respect most country music. It's often painfully cliche. I feel like country music stars and Fox News hosts, they're the sort of white-collar jobs in danger of being replaced by artificial intelligence. Because I don't think it would be very difficult to write an algorithm of how Fox News would react to any given news story. But my perspective on this song is basically that it's phony and insincere, written by a rich guy who lives in suburban Nashville, but it might as well have been written by ChatGPT, the lyrics. It seems tailor-made for people with Fox News brain, thinking that everywhere in the city that there are people running around sucker-punching people. Because that's what happens when you watch Fox News for 12 hours a day, is that you start to think that these things are common occurrences, and they of course only happen in Democrat cities, unlike Republican cities, which are all perfectly safe. In reality, they're not, obviously. Many of the so-called Republican cities have serious crime problems. But for the crowd that watches Fox News all day, every day, they're given a tailor-made message that selectively shows crime in Democratic cities. And so they can pat themselves on the back and say, isn't it better here in a small town? Even though rural America has serious crime problems, and Republican-controlled cities have crime problems, if you are highly selective in what crime you depict and where you depict it, you can make it seem like, hey, this is only happening in so-called Democrat cities. Homelessness is only a problem there. Crime is only a problem there. I mean, the reality is you don't want to mess with people in a small town. Not because they're good old boys who look after their own, but because they're a bunch of meth heads who will probably steal your catalytic converter. Try and make it down the block without your catalytic converter. Parked for 5 minutes and someone stole it. They bought some meth with that, and now they're ready to fight. Don't look at them wrong, or they'll sucker punch you in the head. That's what life is actually like in a small town. But this song, and its cynical attempt to cash in on the fearful mentality of the average Fox News watcher, is a perfect example of the sort of thing that I was talking about in my video, High School Explains the Culture War. So instead of continuing to talk about small-town America in that regard, I'll post a link to that video so you can check that out if you haven't already. But what about the allegations that the song is racist? Now, unless you're completely tone deaf, a white Southern man singing about vigilante justice in a small town definitely has racial overtones. I would describe what this song would sound like if it had been written 60 years ago, but I feel that I would be making light of something that's really too dark to joke about in that regard. There is a history of lynching, not only in southern towns, but in other parts of the country, that the idea of vigilante justice in a small town evokes. Now, I'm certain, I haven't looked this up, but I'm willing to bet money type certain that the defense of Jason Aldean would of course be, that's not what I intended. But at what point do you hold somebody responsible for what should be an obvious parallel or obvious implication? Given that he's from the South, who knows what his education about the Civil War and civil rights and the history of lynching even was? Maybe when he went to school, the chapter on the Civil War was titled The War of Northern Aggression, because although they claim to love their history and love their heritage, they conveniently forget what vigilante justice in small southern towns looked like within living memory. One of the most famous examples is, of course, Emmett Till, a teenage boy from the big city of Chicago who was visiting family in a small town in the South. He was accused of whistling at a white woman, after which some good old boys from the town did incredibly atrocious things to him before murdering him. That's the sort of thing that happened, not in the distant past, but within the lifetime of Jason Aldean's father and grandfather, people that may still be alive today. There are people who alive today who have a completely different idea about what vigilante justice in a small town full of white people looks like. So the song certainly has racial overtones, whether or not he acknowledges it or intended it. And that's what these conservatives who court this type of controversy do, is they make a statement with layers of plausible deniability and say, well, that's not what I meant. That's not what I had in mind. That's not what I intended. You're just getting upset because you're reading into it more than you need to. But to me, there is an obnoxious lack of self-awareness to people like this. There is something obnoxiously self-congratulatory about this sort of conservative anthem of celebrating small towns and not really looking to the darker side, the intolerant side, the aspects of small towns that make countless people leave them as soon as they can. There's that complete lack of awareness that would make someone not even consider that, hey, maybe the idea of small-town vigilante justice can be very, very ugly. Instead, they like to cling to the narrative that small-town, predominantly white America are these bastions of virtue where they are the good guys, and the cities and the people who dwell in them are these dens of iniquity that every problem in this country stems from. And that's what makes a song like this cringe, as the kids like to say nowadays. There's constant discussion about the divide in America, and how if we could only come together and talk things out, we'd realize that we'd have more in common than not, and yada, yada, yada. But this song, and the mentality that it conveys, is an example of how self-congratulatory and up their own ass a lot of the people on the conservative, rural America, Trump-voting, gun-loving side are. It's the flip side to their persecution complex that the coastal elites are sneering down at them. This is the sort of song that says, nuh-uh, actually we's the good guys, and you's the bads people. And to be clear, I don't hate small-town, rural America, or the people that live there, but ooh boy am I sick of that sort of self-congratulation. To me, it goes hand in hand with, and has strong overlap with, the evangelical Christian mentality that thinks that on one hand they're being persecuted, and on the other hand, that they're better and more moral than everyone else. There's a strong Venn diagram overlap between those sorts of people and the people who are concerned with say, the abuse of children, and in their own mind, they project all of that onto Democrats and liberals, when in reality, their child is in far more danger at their church than at a drag show. It's not a matter of beating up on small towns and pointing out all of their problems, although occasionally that's necessary. It's more a matter of, before removing the splinter from your brother's eye, remove the beam from your own. I'm going to leave off on this topic for now. My captors want to inform you that if you do not comment, like, and subscribe, that I will be sacrificed to the algorithms of the machine god. So, for my sake, please do that, and have a good whatever time it is.